Hello. Well, this is us here at not at Kingdom Comics because obviously we're closed at the moment due to lockdown, but we are here online for the next hour or so. If you've got a question, throw it out to me. We're going to discuss comics, TV, movies, maybe some games, things like that. Basically anything you like. I'm joined today by my first week's guest, Mr. Mark Duncan. Mark's a good friend of mine, regular in the shop.
Howdy ho!
Howdy ho! Only man I know who has a master's degree in comics from the University of Dundee. Now, I didn't even know that was a thing. Had I known a university in comics was a possibility growing up, the world would have been completely different from me. So, welcome, Mark. How are you? Before we get around to talking about new comics and new games, new whatever, why don't you tell me a wee bit about your comic experience and what got you into it? Who's your favourites? What you reading?
Yep. What's my favourites? Generally,
generally speaking, yeah. What do you keep going back to? What's your go-to every year?
Only one I read semi-regular the last few years. I think we've talked about it. It's probably The Walking Dead, and it was just collections. So.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
You're here next week or the week after, probably. You're next.
3 sexy dudes. Yeah, the new. I just pick up. I don't read a regular comic, as you know. I mean, sadly, I would like to, pump more money in your business if I did read more regular comics. But I've not read a Marvel big 2 comic regularly for probably at least a decade. What I used to read regularly more than the big 2 was probably things like 2000 AD. Back in the day, I could pick up the odd other comics, but ever since graphic novels and collections became a thing, I've sort of went more to those because being the impatient bugger and a fast reader, I tend to just pick up those more.
It's understandable. I mean, you get more bang for your buck with collections, definitely, than single issues. And if you can put up with not getting books as they come out on a weekly basis, then it's definitely easier on the wallet, and they look nice on the bookcases and things like this.
Oh yeah.
Interesting you speak about 2000 AD. I think for guys our age, 2000 AD was like an access drug to comics.
Oh, yeah.
It was, I feel hugely grateful that the United Kingdom had such a good science fiction comic that came out every week relatively inexpensively. So and gave us much talent.
It was very, very. It was just a absolute hothouse in the 70s. I mean, when I was you were probably a wee bit younger, but I was 7 or 8 when 2000 AD came out. I actually vividly remember going down to John Menzies, as was my dad taking me down to get the newest sci-fi comic that he quite fancied, because Dad had quite liked things like action and Warlord and obviously Commando, things like that.
So, Eagle for me, I think before 2000 AD, that was the
Eagle, yeah.
And Pilot of the Future.
You're a bit young for the original Eagle, but you mean like the revamped Eagle?
Yeah, they were rethinging it.
That was good. I quite liked that. John was more of a bunty.
It still shows. I bet he's still got them. He'll have them all bagged and boarded. In that attic. He's got an attic of comics. I believe we've spoke about this.
Most of my single issue collection stuff, like DC and Independence, they're still at my dad's. Which he does occasionally remind me that they're there. He wouldn't get rid of them because he likes comics himself, but it does remind me that they take up some space in his attic.
That's good. That's obviously the fairy tale I hear more often than any other. The people coming into the comic shop is, I had all these when I was growing up. My mum threw them away, and I get that so often. And it's always like I had Batman #1. I had Amazing Spider-Man #1. I had the first appearance thing, and it's like there's a similar thing in the gaming industry where every single person will tell you that they had an original Charizard Pokemon card and they gave it away for nothing or something like that. It's just the
Holy Grail.
But I do, like I did have, I went through that situation myself. I had many comics growing up, and my mum threw them all away at one point. And amongst them was, not hugely high profile, but I had New Teen Titans issue 2, which was the first appearance of Deathstroke, the Terminator they called him at the time. Deathstroke the Terminator, before Arnold Schwarzenegger came along, and you know, they threatened them with whatever to
change the game.
Yeah. But
yes,
I went through that
for me, because my mum threw away the first 200. She kept on threatening, and obviously you never believe your mum when she says, I'm going to throw it away one day. She actually threw away the first 200 issues of 2000 AD that had.
Number 2 is obviously the first appearance of Judge Dredd.
Big Joe, Stoneface.
Pretty collectible now. So.
Oh, that paper, I must admit, because I wasn't a collector in those days, I was just a reader. You're probably the same. They were just, because it degraded so quick, so yellow when they're not in bags. You know, if you're getting them pristine, you just have to bag them right up. Like,
well, 2000 AD in particular, because it was done on like newspaper quality.
Oh yeah.
It's pulp paper. It's designed to be, you know, read for a day, and then recycled. 2000 AD when it first came out, like most of the comics that are out at the time, John talks about the Bunty there, I'm sure, quite
same paper stock, yeah.
But I when I was at primary school, my first comics that I bought would have been completely forgotten now. But there was comics called Wizard and Chips.
Scream. Top. Is it Topper?
Topper, yeah, Topper. It was like a kind of bootleg Beano, if you like. It was, you know, it was like everyone was trying to recapture the magic of the Beano or the dandy, as we had here in Scotland.
Some of them were, I think, those kind of spin-off, or as you say, clone types. They were slightly more risky, as I seem to remember. You know, there was slightly more ultra characters in them.
Yeah.
The one I always remember is, I can't remember which exact comic it was from, it was Grimly Fiendish. It was kind of like a cross between, like, the Addams Family's Uncle Fester and some sort of, I dare to say, like a child molester or something like that. But, you know, a very, very, very dodgy character.
Yeah.
But good stuff, though. Great comics.
The most dodgy character I've ever seen, and I'm aware this is kind of like a family thing, so I'll not go into too much detail. But I did used to read The Viz, which is sort of a comic. And one time there was a character, and it was either the Beano or the Dandy, I forget. There was a character called Winker Watson.
Oh yeah.
From the Beano. And it was like this public school boy, and they were always trying to smuggle tuck into their school. You know, it was like a rugby sort of school sort of thing.
Yeah.
Viz did a send-up of it called Wanker Watson, where instead of trying to smuggle tuck in and have midnight feasts, they were trying to smuggle in jazz mags. And I say jazz mags, I'm not talking about magazines which have nothing at all to do with music of any sort.
Yeah.
I just thought of that, and it made me laugh a wee bit.
The Viz was good, especially I remember the early days. I was at college when it was first coming. It was almost like a fanzine.
Yeah,
it was even more risky in the early days.
Well, it was half a dozen guys from Newcastle that were going to one of them was having a stag do, and for the stag do, the two guys who did it made up this magazine for them all to read on the train on the stag do, and from there it went on. Viz again, you know, I've not read it for many years now because I'm a middle-aged man now, not somebody in my 20s, but. It was trend-setting for that type of thing. That kind of out and out.
Yeah. Do you remember a revamp of that kind of stuff? It was, I think it was the early 90s or maybe the late 90s, where Frank Quitely first worked on Electric Soup.
I do, yeah. I do.
The Greens rip-off, the Greens.
It was a bit of a rip-off. They had a wee, they were a wee bit more literature-wise, you know, thingy, but
it was a bit slicker than any of Viz. They had some major publishing backing, and they sold them in that music. But the Greens, I did like the Greens. That was the first time I saw Frank Quitely's work, and I was stunned at his imitation of Dudley Watkins. You know, he was obviously emulating that very closely, but in a homage style. It was just lovely. Look at his work then. And of course, as we know now, beautiful work ever since.
Well, yeah, I mean, we like to say that's one of these things we can talk about. I know you're a big fan of Mr. Morrison, who worked extensively with Mr. Quitely on some absolutely fantastic books back in the day. But yeah, that goes back to what you were saying about the hotbed of talent that was 2000 AD.
Oh yeah,
Back in the sort of late 70s, early
early to mid 80s. Yeah, that went right through, and so the big British invasion, of the American like comics like Marvel and DC in the 80s obviously came from both, I'd say, obviously 2000 AD, Star Lord, and Warrior comic, and we know who the big names were. Those that came, both artists and writers, huge names like Morrison.
huge names, and Grant Morrison.
You can see what you like. It's massive influence
Morrison's a
on
massive
everybody.
name now. Alan Moore's a massive name. Garth Ennis is a massive name.
Oh yeah.
Neil Gaiman, obviously a massive name.
Yeah. Artists like Alan Davis, Whiteley, Mick McMahon, Kevin O'Neill, amazing stuff,
Yeah.
Great artists still to this day,
Yeah. And yes, still going strong, still producing work, apart from Alan Moore, who does he do anything, as far as I'm aware these days.
He's just stepped away from comics, with the last League stuff. More of a novelist now and a filmmaker. His output, interesting.
Yeah, I've never seen any of his movies or anything like that.
Worth a look. They're kind of on and off remind me of like a more arty version of Tales of the Unexpected. Some of the movies. Nice twist in the tale, should we say?
We did have. I do another podcast. Sorry, I'm just checking a couple of things.
No problem.
On here, and we had Dave McKean on a couple of weeks ago, talking about his movie, which I'd never actually seen.
Mirror Mask.
Mirror Mask. That's exactly the one. I've been trying to track it down now to try and watch it. Jeff here is mentioning David Pugh. It's possibly another name to think of.
Some great names in comics as well, yeah. When you talk about McKean, I have to go back to Mr. Punch. That scared the bejesus out of me. So creepy. Him and Neil Gaiman. Oh my god. Great comic. But nightmarish.
Was he Neil Gaiman's imagination with Dave McKean's very, very visceral artwork.
Amazing imagination on the man. I was lucky enough to meet a signing. He was very, very tired. They still agreed to pose with a picture with me, and he did look very tired and disgruntled, but he was nice enough to do it. So, kudos to him.
Okay. So this is basically how we're going to work it. Weeks. I'll ask you a couple of things about what's going on. I want to talk about a couple of comics which are new out this week. I'll probably have to discuss them more. I do another, I sort of fill in. I'm the 2.5 men. I'm the half man of the 2.5 men of the Brewgooders on Thursday night. And I usually mention my new comics for the week then. I'll throw them a couple up here now. They didn't arrive until nearly 6 o'clock, so I haven't actually had time to read this week's number ones yet. But there is some quite exciting new stuff out this week, including Berserker, new one.
Big Keanu.
Written by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kent. And I do suspect that Matt Kent will have done the bulk of the writing work.
Yeah, the heavy lifting.
Yeah. I'm particularly interested in this one. I've been spending a lot of time.
Who's the artist on that one?
Mr. Reeves. Ron Garney.
Nice.
Is the artwork. So, and Bill Crabtree, I believe, is the colorist. Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time with Mr. Reeves this last week or so, playing Cyberpunk 2077, and it's nice to see that he's now popping up in comics as well. I've got the John Wick comics kicking about somewhere from him as well. But so I'll have, hopefully in weeks to come, I'll be able to do a wee bit of reviews of comics rather than just showing covers. The only other thing I've got coming out this week is Nocterra number 1, for which I have multiple covers for some reason. A new comic from Scott Snyder, which is, it's usually going to be decent. Tony S. Daniel doing the artwork. Sold. I'm going to have a look at it. If you want to hear about it, give me a shout up, or have a look at our Brewgooders podcast tomorrow. That's Jeff telling me that this one's sold out in Little Shop of Heroes already, which is the local comic shop in Dunfermline. obviously you're on this page, so you'll be aware I'm not in a local comic shop in Kirkcaldy. But no, I do still have copies of Berserker, if anyone's interested, and it isn't flying through the roof on eBay. John's mentioned good movie, which I'm assuming is we're going back to Mirror Mask.
Mirror Mask, yeah.
One that I've not seen yet. So that'll segue us nicely into movies for the week, because there's been a lot of information coming out this week. Biggest move for me, I think, was Superman going to be reboot, and it's potentially bye-bye Cavill, hello Calvin. The rumoured casting is Michael B. Jordan in the role of Kal-El Superman. You've got to imagine that they're going to go with the role of Calvin Ellis. That's
the alternate Superman in the comics, isn't it?
Yes, he was the alternate Black Superman.
Yeah.
President of the United States. Now they might just go with Clark Kent. There's no real reason why he should be white.
No.
Other than that he always has been, but DC have been ahead of the curve. Earth 2, John's telling me. DC's been ahead of the curve, particularly in their TV shows, in casting black and actors of colour in roles.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, but I'm just wondering how the public will take it. As we know, these kind of things have tended to be a bit contentious in certain, how should I put this politely, areas of the public. I think it's a good idea. I mean, diversity is obviously great overall. I just wonder how the public seem to accept superhero films all across the board. I mean, look at Black Panther. Black Panther was a massive smash for Marvel. So I don't see why not,
There is a certain percentage, obviously you'll have heard of Comicsgate and things like that. There's a certain percentage of comic fans who are bitter, twisted people.
Yeah,
and these are the people who didn't want to see Captain Marvel because they didn't want a female-led comic. They didn't want to see Fantastic Four because it was there was a black actor and a white actor's part, not because it was an actual god-awful movie. Through no fault of Josh Tranks, because he got absolutely hamstrung by the
studios totally screwed him. Yeah, it's a shame because Tranks, quite a talented writer-director, and Chronicle, which was his previous one, was amazing. That's one of the best found footage superhero films I've ever seen.
Yes, exactly. I am going to respond to all questions and comments as I go along, so it does seem like I'm jumping back and forward. Nocterra, is that Nocterra and Berserker? I assume you're talking about Willie. I've got a few different covers of each, so if you're interested, drop me a line. But I think going back to Superman, it's going to be a case of if he can do the job, he's got the physique. If you've seen Creed, he looks like he was carved out of stone. He's a
very short, guy. Maybe Superman. That's the only criticism I'd say about Michael Jordan.
Sorry?
He's a wee bit short for Superman. That's the only thing I would say about Mike Jordan.
He's not massive, but then I don't think Henry Cavill was either. Not like Christopher Reeves, who was.
He's tall. Cavill's tall, and that's the prerequisite. Supes needs to be quite imposing.
I was a massive fan of Henry Cavill's. I was a massive fan of Man of Steel. I didn't think Batman v Superman was anywhere near as bad as they think it is. And I'm very excited for the Justice League movie.
Justice League movie was disappointing, but I still enjoyed it. I love the DC heroes, so
I'm excited for the one that's coming in Easter, the 4-hour version. So it's like 2 hours extra. Let's hope they put everything right that went wrong with it. I'm sad to see Cav go. The Snyder Cut, John. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly the word I was looking for.
That's actually what I say. It's fine.
I'm excited to see a new version of Superman. I'm always excited to see a new version of Superman. I'm even excited for. Well, not excited, but I'm looking forward to seeing the new CW show, which started this last week, I think. When it hits Sky here in the UK.
What is it?
The time we're hoping. Is this the Arrowverse ones? They've
Superman and Lois.
Superman and Lois. That's the very one. Yeah. I've got great memories of Smallville, so I'm going to.
I didn't even mind Lois and Clark. It wasn't.
By Nick Geo, Flash maybe finds the new Superman. I know that Flash is going to come. Flash is the next big screen. Is Flash or Batman first?
I think it's Flash, isn't it?
Flash. So yeah,
maybe Batman. That Batman film with Robert Pattinson has been in limbo so much since the coronavirus started.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure. It's one of the two, but yeah, the Flash movie looks.
When movies are coming out, I know that the Kingsman was supposed to be out last February, and I'm still waiting for that. So
yeah,
we don't know when movies are going to come out.
Did you watch you seen the new Wonder Woman? Wonder Woman 1984
movie? Yes, I did.
Yeah. I quite enjoyed that.
I did. I could see. I didn't pick up on the problems that they talked about until after the movie. That's quite often the case with me. I'll watch a movie and I'll come out it going, "Oh, that was amazing." And then, when people come out and go, "Well, do you not have an issue with stealing the guy's body?"
They need to remember that it's a suspension of disbelief and it's a film based on a comic, which are all fantasy.
I mean, it wasn't the best superhero movie I've seen, in the last couple of years.
But it was fun.
But
it was good hearted.
Pedro Pascal's always eminently watchable.
Amazing.
In it. As John's saying, JJ, I'm assuming he's talking about Abrams, who wrote the script for Superman back in the day before Superman Returns. That could have been the one. Back at that time, Henry Cavill was also up for the position of Superman, along with Matt Boomer. Matt Boomer from Blue Collar?
Yeah, vaguely as a kind of B-listy actor.
Yeah, well,
mostly TV.
Yeah, he's in Titans now. He's in no Titans. The one that Grant Morrison did.
Doom Patrol.
He's in Doom Patrol now, and he's phenomenal at it. He actually looks like a pound shop Henry Cavill. Very similar features. I always thought he would have made a great Bizarro if they could ever have got the two of them.
Pound stretcher Cavill.
Yeah, but Matt Boomer was up for that part, and Henry Cavill was up for that part before Brandon Routh.
I did enjoy. I've seen the first season of Doom Patrol and I loved it. I thought that's just spot on. Really good casting, good writing.
It definitely catches the the comedy side of it, the characters as well, the slightly surrealness of Doom Patrol from. It's some of his best work. Some of Grant Morrison's best work was things like that. I've always said Grant Morrison's a great writer when he's writing characters that he didn't create. He's great at taking other people's characters and doing marvelous stories with them.
Can that not be said for most creators?
Yes, I know, but he's kind of always tried to do what was the Invisibles or something like that. Was kind of his go at Sandman and things, and they've never been as high profile.
I love the Invisibles. I thought
that's one called Seven Soldiers of Victory, which was I think a 12-issue run where all the characters basically seven soldiers didn't meet each other until the last couple of pages of the last thing, and then the whole story.
I love that one as well. To be honest, that was a good comic. That was stunning as well, wasn't it? So no, J.G. Marshall actually did that. It was amazing.
J.G. Jeff saying his feelings on Wonder Woman was it was a response to 2019 issues. It fell out of date. Possibly, I mean, it was made just before. It was made and to be released just before the whole world went crazy. So
I didn't feel that, to be honest. I mean, I think there's a couple of things in there. It could be on that sort of point, but I think overall, it was just a good-hearted movie about how great Wonder Woman can be on screen. And I thought Gal Gadot knocked it out of the park yet again. And Kristen Wiig, I thought was a great cheetah. Amazing. Her arc in it was just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, all the actors, isn't it? Gal Gadot is, undeniably brilliant as Wonder Woman. She's the sort of mix of beauty and strength, which is totally believable.
Oh yeah.
And I'm speaking as somebody who grew up with Wonder Woman TV show and was a massive fan.
Linda Carter, there's your Wonder Woman. What an amazing Wonder Woman.
It was great for her to appear in that kind of show, at the end.
Nice, it was nice.
William, this comment's going to cover both of our faces when I put it up. But
Gerard Way doing
as Johnson, he really enjoyed the Gerard Way Doom Patrol run.
I thought it was all right.
Yeah, he did a decent job, Gerard Way. Again, he's the opposite. I think I prefer his work that he's done original. Obviously, Umbrella Academy is sort of superior to me than anything he's done working for anybody else. But
I liked the series. I was surprised that it was actually as well written as it was, considering what his background is. Because I hate his. He was in that group, wasn't he? What's his name?
My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, and I hate them. So I was stunned at how good the writing was.
I'm going to take a wee stab here and say that you're probably not their target audience.
I was into metal for a long, long time, and some people were calling that new metal and stuff, and it was rubbish.
It was kind of goth punk, I would say. I'm not going to say I'm a massive fan of My Chemical Romance, but I am sort of a fan of that semi-genre of music. I'm a big fan of Green Day, and
Green Day is different. They're pop punk.
Yeah,
I like Green Day. I've seen them live. Love them.
But Gerard Way, he's a talented guy. Obviously, he can write. He can.
I think I've read one of the comics. I liked the series on Netflix. I really enjoyed Umbrella Academy, the first series.
I'm going to move us. Oh, no, that's not any good. Just gotta let people read thing here.
It's going to be a detail.
Yeah, I think he's got a spot on there. A lot of creatives now want to be in creator-owned projects. For too many years, I'm going to remove that one just now because it's covering my face completely. But it's a great point, William. For a lot of years, comic writers and artists were sort of regarded as paid help. They were churning it out, and
hired guns.
Marvel or DC or whatever owned your work in its entirety.
Which is disgusting.
They didn't change their minds out of the goodness of their heart. They had to be taken to court many, many times by the estates of Bill Finger and Jack Kane, Jerry Siegel, and Joe Shuster. They didn't want to admit. They didn't want to say that you were working for us when you did that, so we own everything. And now, partly spurred on, I think, by the Image guys back in the 90s, by Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane, saying, no, we're going to go and do our own thing, and we're going to own the rights to our characters, and we're going to do this. And Image Comics is we talk about the big two, but Image Comics, I think, are very close to the big two now. They put out most of the hot books that come out on a weekly basis is Image books. I think
Image is better now. When they've started, I bought a lot of books when Image first came out, because obviously, like yourself, you're probably the same. I was quite excited to see a new imprint coming out and see some of the great creators from DC and Marvel just starting up something new. But it quickly tailed off. A lot of them, some of them were still quite good. A lot of them were good visually, but the stories were dreadful.
They threw a lot of stuff at the wall back in the day. A lot of their characters were a wee bit derivative, and they were throwing everything at the wall to see what stuck, basically. And some stuff did, some stuff. And this is obviously when William was speaking about Snyder. This would be Scott Snyder's Nocterra. Again, it's the Image title.
Yeah.
It's the Image #1 this week. If you watch my other show, you'll know. I pull out a new Image #1 every week because they put out a new book basically every week. You'll get a new #1 from Image. They're putting out at least four new stories every month.
One of my favourite of the time is probably Walking Dead, and that's Image, isn't it? So
yes,
great.
I think they're trying to recapture that. They want to have the next Walking Dead. They want every decent comic now is kind of optioned by Netflix or Amazon.
Lightning in a bottle, isn't it? It's difficult to predict or capture.
You don't know what's going to hit and what isn't. The Walking Dead hit, massive success. Deadly Class didn't hit, just didn't make it, unfortunately. Umbrella Academy, a massive hit, I think, and we'll be looking forward to a third season of that coming soon.
I used to like Dark Horse back in the day as well. I used to come out with some good stuff. But I kind of tailed off a bit, and I kind of just did licensed stuff for a while. But I've not read a Dark Horse comic for years, so I wouldn't know anymore.
I must admit, it's mostly image books that I'm kind of I'll read. I'll have a look at and read. You know, it used to be like the same. It used to be for me. It used to be Vertigo back when Vertigo was a thing.
Vertigo was great. Yeah.
Yeah, Dark Horse when they had Dark Horse had Conan and Alien and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So they were very good.
The Alien stuff when they first brought out, some of the continuations of like Aliens that they did and Aliens versus Predator, those were amazing. But you know, it's just, so as you say, some things hit, some things don't. It's just, it seems to be like luck almost what actually hits.
Well, but TV, obviously, we're living in a golden age of TV as well. I've just gotten through, obviously, we're in lockdown, so I'm rewatching everything. I've just gotten through 2 seasons of Daredevil again. Super excited that Charlie Cox is coming back for at least the Spider-Man movie. And
That's brilliant.
more. Yeah.
So happy when I heard that.
Yeah. And now we've got the first of the Millerverse tales coming soon. Don't know if you've seen the trailer for the Jupiter's Legacy.
It looks spot on to the comic, I must admit.
They do. It doesn't give much away, the trailer, but you know what they'd have done. It does look exactly like I would have expected it to look. So
it looks the costumes look odd, but it's only because they're no. I think a lot of your average fans will look at it and say, "What the hell is this?" It's like, you know, they're kind of odd costumes, but they're not the big two. So you know, it's coming off the back of Mark Millar, so it'll look a wee bit different. And obviously, it's going to be, if it's like the comic, it'll be hyper violent.
I think that's the thing. Is a lot of comic fans have become like a lot. You know, again, it's a golden era for comic fans in terms of movies and TV shows now, and a lot of people have come to it through the Marvel Cinematic Universe and things like this. And you know, they think that the argument is actually there. It's DC, you're a DC or you're a Marvel or something like that. And it's for me, it's not. You're a fan of comics, no matter who's making them.
I like them all. I'm more DC inclined just because I like darker stuff, but I like them all. I've liked Marvel and DC, and as we talked about earlier, I liked Independence, I like 2000 AD stuff. Wherever it is, if it's comics, I usually like it. Except for manga. I'm not a big manga fan, but that's more of an age thing, bro.
Yeah, my manga has some great stories. You know,
the art throws me though every time. So I've tried it so much, and I studied it at uni. My lecturer, God bless him, gave me a lot of classic stuff to read, and I liked them. Things like Lone Wolf and Cub. I liked Akira, things like that, you know, Appleseed. But
Akira was the first like anime movie that I watched, like probably most people. Akira was kind of my entry level manga anime sort of style. I did like Alita. I read a lot of Alita off the back of very much enjoying Robert Rodriguez's movie a couple of years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong if it wasn't Robert Rodriguez. I think it was, but I might be wrong.
I think it was. I can't remember actually. Alita Battle Angel.
Yes.
I've not watched the whole of it. I think I've watched a bit of it, and I didn't dislike it. There's a lot of good actors in it. And again, I've heard this argument. Obviously, I'm not so much into anime and manga, but I've heard a lot of people, mates of mine who'll probably chip in on this, that it's like the Anglification of manga and anime. You know, when they cast Western actors in Oriental roles, but that goes across the board. It's not just in the comics. It's like certain films are remade in Hollywood.
Very big ones, the cast Scarlett Johansson, I think, in Ghost in the Shell, and then Rosa Salazar in Battle Angel Alita. To a certain extent, you can sort of see, you know, they want to be able to sell it to a Western audience, and without a big name Hollywood star, it would be difficult to.
It would sink without a trace in America, really, because your Americans would just not watch it. Simple as that. Yeah, it was Robert Rodriguez that directed that, Andrew. You're spot on.
Robert Rodriguez, there we go. The bottom of my page there, I just will quickly mention this is my YouTube channel. If you get along there, there's no videos on it at the moment at all, apart from one of the shop. But I am going to be archiving the podcasts there. So, you know, if you're interested in having a look at them in future, get along there, you know, like, subscribe. If I can get some subscribers, then, you know, I might start adding up more content. I am sitting in the house at the moment doing absolutely nothing and will be for at least the next 4 weeks. So I could be persuaded. So that's the YouTube channel. Have a look. Throw me a like and share, and you'll be able to view these if you miss them on the day. I'll leave them on the Facebook page for a week or so, but then I think I'm going to be archiving them to YouTube. So, so Anglification is a big thing. They've done it in many things.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I don't mind it so much if it's a work. If I'm drawn to it just because of the director or writers or adapting it, it's fine. And if that draws me into the original one, the original work, that's fine as well, because that it opens you up to the broader work. But sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
John there's mentioned Ghost in the Shell, which was poop. Couldn't get into it. It lasted about 20 minutes. I'm going to have to ask him. Are you talking about the original anime version or the remake live
I think
action
you mean
version?
the remake, because John likes a bit of anime, as I remember. Everybody
John likes all movies. I hope to get him on here within the next couple of weeks to discuss comics and movies. John, he's talking about the remake.
Just don't get him started on 80s movies, because he has a very singular taste in 80s.
I believe he's got more DVDs. He owns more DVDs and movies than I've seen in my lifetime. He's a massive fan. Hopefully, we will get him on here within the next couple of weeks. If you're interested in John, get you on here and you can chat to your heart's content, and we'll give you a wee shout out for your art as well. Very good, decent local artist. You'll have seen him at every convention.
When they were on
every local convention. If you've got a local convention, John will be there selling his original artwork.
Official Star Wars cards.
Yeah.
Very amongst many.
So, yeah. So, TV shows.
Well, you can't mention TV shows. They mention the beauty that is The Mandalorian.
And then there's another one.
Pascal again.
The Mandalorian is one of those ones that's going to change. I believe it's going to change the way this stuff's made with the cinematography, but the use of a massive wraparound screen to create the background rather than a green screen, so that the actors are working against the screen will change. I think it's going to change the industry.
Yeah, definitely. And John Iron Man Favreau's basically hooked into another franchise again, and he's hit a winner out the park right away.
He's an amazingly talented guy. I've been aware of him for many years. He was in a couple of, but back when he was an actor.
Mm-hmm.
He did a movie called, this is when he was already famous, but he did a movie called Chef, and he kind of learned to be a chef for the movie. He's that kind of guy, and now he has his own show on Netflix called The Chef Show, where he travels about making food with guys. He was at the Skywalker Ranch and things like that.
I think I've heard that.
So, he's a great talented guy. The Mandalorian has been his kind of away from the Marvel universe. The Mandalorian has been his.
I wept at the final. Yes, I teared up as well, John. I have to admit.
I do think, and it's controversial possibly, but I think they didn't need to CGI Luke Skywalker in. If they're going to use him in future, then
Sebastian Stan.
They've already got him on contract at Marvel. He looks like Luke Hamill did when he was younger. Blonde hair, he would step into the role absolutely perfectly.
We tint in the hair, and is Mark Hamill to a T.
Yes. So you could get him in the role, and and I've seen as well. Somebody did a deep fake recently of Millie Bobby Brown, deep faked into Princess Leia. The girl from Stranger Things. And again, she has that same kind of skin and look and stuff like this. If they're going to reuse these characters, they recast Han Solo for the Han Solo movie, which was much better than people, reckon it to be.
Alden Ehrenreich was okay. I didn't see what
good. Get Sebastian Stan and Millie Bobby Brown in, round out the three, and if they ever think about doing any more Star Wars on the Skywalkers, you've got the three there. Or even if they're just going to pop up occasionally. Yeah. In either The Mandalorian or one of the other shows which are coming from there.
I'd buy that for $1.
And obviously we can't talk about Disney shows without talking about the behemoth that is WandaVision.
Sorry, just rubbing my knees.
From a first couple of weeks where you were like, what's going on? to what it's become. Just week after week of payback after payback after payback, and we're only a couple of days out now from the season finale. Are you excited?
Oh, damn right I am. I mean, it's the most meta thing I've ever seen in the Marvel universe. It's just so well done. The pacing, as you said, of the first few episodes, I think was perfect. Getting a lot of embryos on the net were moaning about, it's nothing's happening, and just like, oh, shut up. Grow some patience, grow up, and enjoy it. It was paced perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely was. Looking back on it now, you can see why. Favreau and Filoni, great double act. You're right, Dave Filoni does not get enough credit.
He's amazing as well, yeah. Couldn't do it without him, obviously.
Some of the greatest characters in the Star Wars universe. He's probably second only to George Lucas.
Yeah. Although I will say both of them obviously were taking a lot of inspiration for The Mandalorian from Sergio Leone and John Ford, because it's basically a Western.
Yeah, absolutely. But
he's even a gunslinger, and he does it. He does the gunslinger thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Timothy Olyphant is that character as well.
Oh, that was so good.
If you know him from Deadwood
and Justified.
Yeah. I think in Justified he almost plays the same. It's like he's playing his own great grandson or something.
Yeah.
Of the character he played in Deadwood when he was, he was the sheriff of Deadwood.
Definitely. So, it was like a modern continuation of the sheriff. It was so good.
But you're right. Filoni doesn't get enough credit out with the genre. There's not enough people outside the Star Wars who know who Dave Filoni is, and he's an absolute genius. Also appears in the Chef Show on Netflix with
is he?
with John. He did.
Long may they continue to do that partnership in Star Wars.
But yeah, going back to WandaVision, Disney are actually knocking it out of the park as well. They've got more as well. Like I know that the one that's slipped under the radar a wee bit is Hellstrom, which is on
based on the horror comics in the 70s.
Yes, it's based on Damon Hellstrom, Son of Satan, which was
a middling comic.
Yeah, but it's still a Marvel comic, and it's a Marvel TV show. And the fact that nobody seems to know.
I'd heard it was out, but I've not seen it.
There's 3 episodes up, I think, on Disney at the moment. I've watched the first one. I liked it. It's kind of a supernatural thriller type thing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, like it a lot. So it's on Disney's new. I think they launched a new. Is it Star or something like that?
Star, yeah.
For adult content, which has got the X-Files on it, and all sorts of good stuff. As if Disney wasn't giving us enough. We've got that there. But yeah, Hellstrom's up on there. If you want to look at that as well. In the next few weeks, we're going to have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, quickly followed by Loki, followed by What If.
What If? Oh, I love those comics. I think you did that. Maybe you've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I mean, What If? What a great platform for a kind of Tales of the Unexpected for Marvel,
You can think of anything you want, What if all the characters were hippos? Why not? If we can get somebody to write it, we'll do it. There's no constraints on the story that you can do with What If. Although I did notice, particularly in the early issues, no matter what the What If change was, things kind of worked out the same as they did in the kind of Earth 1 universe. Or what's Marvel Earth 818 or something like that?
Yeah, it's a different equivalent, isn't it? Yeah, I can't remember it, to be honest, but yeah. It is. It's like alternative universe kind of stuff, but I'm a sucker for that kind of thing.
Yes, well, me as well. Parallel universe things. I was a wee bit shocked on the new Disney that the Fringe didn't make it over. Hopefully it will.
Fringe is great, yeah.
I really loved it. It's kind of a natural successor to the X-Files.
A more ultra X-Files, yeah.
Yeah. So that's not made it over yet. But
and Anna Torv, fantastic. Great actress. Great in Mindhunter as well.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's a great show. Like, again, one which was really hurt by the coronavirus, because I think they were ready to come back and make a new season of that.
Because I'd love to see a finish to that. So good.
Hopefully they'll come back. Hopefully they'll be back. Yeah.
Well, they're starting. Some productions are trickling back. I mean, I think The Walking Dead was back this week. I watched that, but obviously they're having to do it piecemeal. So obviously it's very problematic for an ongoing production. But hopefully that's all got started with the vaccines going out. More crews will be able to get passports and such like.
Hopefully, we're just a few weeks away now from being able to get me back into the shop, get Gaiman back on the go, get back to face chatting to people.
Definitely.
Because even someone as famously antisocial as me, I kind of miss seeing people.
Ditto.
Firefly is on Disney Star as well. I remember Firefly for many years. I would contend that Firefly was one of the greatest shows ever made, and it still is. But obviously, there's more and more. Like, before I go into the next comment, I, for many years I would have said Firefly was the best science fiction show ever made, better than any Star Trek show. Much as I love these Star Trek shows, it was just in a class in its own. I kind of feel a little bit like I'm cheating now, because there's a show on Amazon now called The Expanse, which is quite simply the best science fiction.
I watched the first couple of seasons and I've quite enjoyed it.
Yes, it's phenomenally good, phenomenally well written, phenomenally well acted.
A more realistic take, would you say, on it?
Yeah, it's grounded in science. Apart from there's a bit of alien tech, but apart from that, it's pretty much grounded in science. I did make this comment a couple of weeks ago as well about the first novel of The Expanse came out 4 weeks before Dance with Dragons, which is the most recent novel of.
Oh God, they get me started on that.
Yeah, and they've put out 8 novels since then, since 2011. 8 novels, and the 9th one's going to be out this year. So they will have done the entire Expanse series.
Please, George, don't die before you finish the series.
Oh yeah, Brandon Sanderson will finish it for him if that happens. But yeah, I get frustrated.
We don't want to go down those lines though, because it's like sometimes when you get other writers in to ghostwrite finishes, it can be execrable.
Brandon Sanderson did the Wheel of Time and stuff like this, but you do think anybody does. Loads of people are doing June ones now and stuff like this. But yeah, there's another writer that I don't know if you're aware of him, called Patrick Rothfuss. Pat Rothfuss, and he wrote a book called The Name of the Wind, which is quite simply the best fantasy novel written in the last 20 years. The second book came out
like fighting fantasy, magic and stuff.
Well, yeah, it's like Game of Thrones. It's more grounded fantasy. There's a little bit of magic in it, but it's quite simply the best fantasy series being written at the moment. And the second book of that, I think, came out in 2011 as well. First book in 2007, second book in 2011, and now we're 10 years later and we're still waiting for that third book. That's Alan agreeing with me about Fringe. He's rewatching it in Sci-Fi at the moment. Yeah, that's possibly why it's not.
Great show.
It's maybe still tied up. I would definitely be rewatching that. Joshua Jackson, who, if you've got the Disney as well, Joshua Jackson's one of the kids in Mighty Ducks.
Yeah, Dawson's Creek.
Oh yeah, he was in Dawson's Creek as well. But even before that, he was one of the skating kids in the Mighty Ducks.
He's one of the original kids.
One of the original kids, as is Eldon Henson, who I was talking about earlier on there about Daredevil, and Foggy Nelson in the Daredevil TV show, is Eldon Henson, I think, yeah, and he's one of the original Mighty Ducks as well.
He's one of them as well. He's really good in Daredevil actually.
Yeah.
As is what's your cry? What's the name? They're all good.
I know people rave about, how good was the casting of Chris Hemsworth, how good was the casting of Chris Evans, how good was the casting of Charlie Cox. The greatest piece of casting that Marvel has done in their cinema universe or their TV universe is, in my opinion, is Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk.
Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, yeah.
Yes.
Deborah Ann Woll was in True Blood as well, as a very sexy vampire. And she was perfect as Karen Page. Perfect.
She is, but I don't think the character's asked to do very much beyond, look worried and be in danger. She's the classic femme.
If you read the comics, which I know you do, in the Frank Miller run, she's a very pivotal character. She gives up Daredevil's name. Yeah. And that's when the Kingpin has his day. And that would have been great if we could have seen that in the next series of Daredevil.
Well, that was almost adapted. That was almost adapted because she did sort of give up his name in the sort of third one.
Yeah.
And Frank Miller was the Daredevil series was hugely dependent on Frank Miller's Man Without Fear
Yeah.
run. And then the sort of second
Especially
season
his covered sort of bandana face and that, the black costume.
The second season got away from it a wee bit, but the third season was kind of the Born Again run.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, the best parts of these Netflix shows, which probably was for me, was Daredevil and the Punisher, were based on the comics.
Oh yeah, Punisher. John Bernthal was one of the best Punishers I've ever seen on screen or from small screen.
And heavily borrowed from Garth Ennis's
Warzone and that. Yeah.
Things like, yeah, Born Again was so good. Frank Miller Daredevil is awesome. Absolutely, John, couldn't agree more. But yeah, the other shows which kind of they took them away a wee bit from the source material.
Yeah.
Which Luke Cage and Iron Fist in particular weren't quite so good. But the two where they sort of stayed, of course, Alias was sort of halfway between them. Alias was very good in the first season, never quite lived up to that. There's no lot of source material for Jessica Jones.
No.
Unfortunately, she's only had a couple of runs as far as I'm aware.
Kristen Ritter's supposedly talking about coming back as well. There's been nods, apparently, from small nods within Disney, so that might happen as well. She appears in one of the films.
I hope they bring back all the shows. Even the sort of the weakest of them for me was Iron Fist, and it still wasn't bad. It was better than the CW stuff.
Yeah,
and on a little bit of a cliffhanger.
I was a bit sad because I did love the Iron Fist comics as a kid. I quite liked the Master of Kung Fu as well, and that's getting done. That's done this now, isn't it?
Shang-Chi is a movie, yeah.
Well, I think they're playing down his links to Fu Manchu because obviously it's problematic for licensing and for racial stereotyping. But I'm looking forward to that because I loved Shang-Chi in the comics. I thought that was great. And back in the day, I would have had Bruce Lee play him, obviously. But now,
Can't be done. So I'm sure they'll find someone. Like, again, Marvel has been pretty spot on at casting.
Just about so far, yeah.
I can't think, yeah. Well, see, I can,
Finn Jones was miscast as Danny Rand. I like Finn Jones in Game of Thrones, but he needed to be a lot more athletic.
He should have been much more calm, much more zen-like.
More zen, more athletic looking, and it just didn't fit the bill for that. I think he grew into it a wee bit, but he was just miscast. Simple as
the one I was going to refer to was maybe Terrence Howard as Rhodey in the first Iron Man. They obviously decided he wasn't quite the right fit.
Well, I heard behind the scenes.
And recast Cassie Lang for the next Ant-Man movie as well, which is there was a lot of hoorah about that online.
There is online, isn't there? Yeah. Going back to Iron Fist, I did think that Jessica Henwick as Colleen Wing was really good. The Daughters of the Dragon stuff, I'd love to have seen splitting off for that, but if
you watch the Defenders TV show, I think Simone Missick as Misty. Colleen, and also I'm dreadful with names, but
I've got it in front of me. I have crabbed it here.
Claire Temple was the they could definitely have done.
Simone Missick is Misty Knight and Jessica Henwick is Colleen Wing. Yeah, they were amazing in that. Amazing. Yes. And the chemistry was so good between them.
Perfect.
I could easily, quite happily watch a few series with them in it, just alone, But it's just a shame that show, because of Finn Jones, it just didn't quite hit.
I think obviously they cancelled all the shows, even the ones that were hitting. Marvel wanted the rights back, and the only way to get the rights back was to stop making the Netflix ones. The longer they made them, the longer Netflix retained the rights. Because if they made a new season of something, it's 2 years from when that one goes on that the rights reverted. So they wanted the rights back, and I believe now they've got all the rights back.
Yeah,
to all the characters,
including finally things like Fantastic Four and Spidey, obviously. But they're still
Fantastic Four. We're still expecting possibly to see one of them pop up in WandaVision. That's been the rumor all along, but
I've seen loads of rumours.
Pop up as Reed Richards.
Who do you think?
What's that?
Who do you think's going to pop up in the final episode? I have my own ideas, but I want to hear what you're saying first.
Right. Well, given that they've sort of done White Vision, which was from West Coast Avengers.
Yeah.
To get him back alive, he was reliant on a certain character who sort of co-created him, and he was an engineer.
Ultron.
No, Ultron did create him, but his mind panels came from Simon Williams.
Wonder Man. Oh, I'd like to see Wonder Man. I liked Wonder Man in Avengers.
Yes, so I'd like to see him pop up on the TV show.
That'd be good.
He sort of appeared in one of the Avengers movies, I think, in the form of posters on walls that cinemas were doing a Simon Williams retrospective, and Nathan Fillion played the character in these posters.
I'd love to see Nathan Fillion as Wonder Man. That'd be so good.
Because even though he's already played the character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it was only a voice.
Yeah. So it's possible. It's possible. I think personally, because obviously I'm trying not to give too much away as spoilers here, how I phrase it. If you've been watching it, I'll try and say it if you've not seen it. Right. Because of the nature of what's happening with our protagonist and the powers of that protagonist, I think it'll be somebody more like along the lines of Dormammu or Doctor Strange, shall we say.
Yeah. Doctor Strange is kind of 3-1 second fate to be popping up.
It might be somebody like Dormammu or something like that, one of the more obscure nasties from the era world.
They're working towards a multiverse. That's why, all these characters, like the next Spider-Man movie, is rumoured that you're going to have all 3 live-action Spider-Men.
Toby Jones and Andrew Garfield as well.
Yes. As well as Charlie Cox. More recent rumours that I heard was Chris Evans reprising his role as Johnny Storm, alongside Jessica Alba as parallel universe Fantastic Four, which could help to introduce them. So they're embracing the parallel sort of universe side. Mephisto has been mentioned an awful lot, but I'm starting to think that's been a red herring that Marvel have thrown in there along the way through the show.
It's a bit obvious considering the nature of the show.
Yeah. I think I went into the show thinking it was going to be Agatha Harkness, and then after 4 or 5 episodes I was like, well, obviously it isn't, because it isn't, and then it was. Even though I called that one in the first episode, that came as a big shock.
I did like even Peter showing up as the alternate brother, shall we say.
Yes, it's clever, and again, it's another way to introduce.
Hold them into it.
Yeah, and there was a line in the the last episode, but the one before that, where we talked to Monica Rambeau and said that your cells are being rewritten on a cellular level, which they basically all but mentioned the word mutant or mutate, and I think this could also be a backdoor way. Every single person that's in the hex could be the start of the mutant kind.
That'd be good.
This could be a way for them to.
What's Monica Rambeau in the comics? Is it Spectrum?
Photon,
that was it.
Photon, yeah. She was Captain Marvel herself in her own right.
Well, yeah, I remember that.
And the costume that she wore kind of looks like the Photon costume.
Was it a white costume with a star on it?
White costume with a black star.
That was it.
And a black bit further down. And obviously in the show, it's like the sword emblem, which is the star should. So yeah, bringing him in.
Yeah. I've enjoyed it. I so enjoyed WandaVision. I mean, I didn't know what to expect, but I thought, it's a given. If you like comics, you're going to like something like that.
Yeah. So I'm going to say a couple of other things now. Obviously, thanks for anybody who's watching. We're going to be on for a wee while longer, still chatting, but it's not just going to be comics. Obviously, once I'm back into the shop, we're going to be dealing with new gaming stuff, which comes out on a regular basis as well. So once we're back open, pop along to the shop. There's some great stuff comes out every week. Recently, we've got the Altered Carbon RPG.
Ooh.
Out now. So if you're a fan of Cyberpunk, absolutely great.
I've not watched the second series, but that first series was cracking.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Very
Brilliant.
good.
We've got some new Pokemons in. Magic the Gathering. Ding, ding, ding. All going to be available in the shop once we reopen. Love these from when I was a baby, when I was very young. Choose Your Own Adventure is back.
Oh my god.
This time in the form of a game for 1 to 4 players, sort of thing. So I remember these very fondly from when I was
Do you
young.
remember that back in the day?
Eh?
Lone Wolf, do you remember that?
I
Choose
do.
your
Aye,
own-
Gary.
Gygax?
No, Gary Gygax was
Microsoft.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons, that was it.
Aye. It was,
I'm
it
going
was,
back
it
because the
was,
last,
it was
last
Gary
time I was
something.
playing a long time ago.
Fire
That
on
was
the
you
Wall or something like that.
Call of Cthulhu I used to play a long time ago.
Yeah. RPGs are great. I've got lots of RPGs in the shop as well. There's new ones come out every week. Recently we've had the Cyberpunk 2077 RPG book, and one based on Tales from the Loop, which was another fantastic TV show and a fantastic set of art books by Simon Stalenhag. And we've got a game in that. Nice wee kids RPG called Kids on Brooms, which was a follow-up to the phenomenally successful Kids on Bikes. In Kids on Bikes, you play an RPG as a child in like the Goonies or E.T. sort of thing. And Kids on Brooms, you basically play as a child at a school, a non-trademarked school for witchcraft and wizardry.
Not trademark.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of great RPGs, and I very much hope to get back to role-playing, to running role-play games and to having people in the shop within the next couple of months. So, but we'll
Just tried to surreptitiously look up. Lone Wolf was Joe Deaver and
Joe
Gary
Deaver.
Chop.
Was it Fire on the Water or something like that? Or Smoke on the No.
Flight from the Dark, Fire on the Water, yeah. I had a couple of those books back in the day and really enjoyed them, I remember.
I think they were seminal. I think they started, it was Ian Livingston and Steve Jackson.
Ian Livingston.
And they started with the fighting fantasy game books, and that was the kind of first ones. Choose Your Own Adventure came a wee bit later and was kind of for a slightly younger age. I had loads of them. There was one based on the life of King Arthur. There was ones based. You could play as Indiana Jones. The fighting fantasy game ones had ones where you could play as a superhero.
There was a Dice Man as well. I remember the Dice Man book as well. That was quite good. And I remember the Hobbit. Remember the Hobbit RPG for the computer, a very early one.
Yeah.
That was a next kind of thing.
Yeah, played that. Played Zork, and things like this. All the other ones. Yeah, basically, if you watch the the movie or read the book version of Ready Player One, the guy grew up in the 1980s. Every reference in that book, from war games to E.T. to coin-operated arcades to everything like that. The music, I get everything. Everything was me.
You read Ready Player 2? I've got it. I've not read it yet.
I haven't. I don't think it's a book which needs a sequel. I think the sequel.
I was quite surprised when I saw it came out.
I'm going to say it's a cash grab. I think they probably want to make a second movie. I think they did everything they needed to do in the first movie and the first book even. I'm not sure. It's not on my to be read list. Let's just say at the moment I've got all sorts of stuff which I've sort of bought and downloaded and bought. I'm working my way through the Rivers of London series by Ben Aronovich. They are very, very good.
I'm up to date with those, I think.
Sorry. I don't know if he's been serious here, but Batman Death in the Family.
The Blu-ray and the shelves. I've not got it yet.
Saying, I remember Death in the Family when it originally came out, and people were allowed to vote for whether or not they wanted Jason Todd to live.
In the US,
Which was very dark, because Jason Todd, I think, is my favourite Robin. I think he's the only one.
And the survey said?
This is a perfect example. And
that did shock me back in the day. I imagine it shocked the hell out of you back then as well.
Survey said. Finally getting a chance to use my soundboard. I set up a soundboard for this. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to use it, but just in case anything comes up, and I can be like. I've got the soundboard in place. All sorts of different sounds.
But Jason came back as the Red Hood anyway, so he got his own back eventually.
I think he was the most fleshed out character. They actually, if you watch the Teen Titans show, which I'm quite fond of, they've gone quite hardcore.
I've watched the first season and thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, the second season just as good. They introduced Zatanna and Wonder Girl and things like this.
Oh, Zatanna. Oh, I have to watch that. Is she in her costume from the comics?
No, not that one.
Bugger.
See, the guy who plays Hawk, is it Hawk and Dove? So the guy who plays Hawk in season 1 and indeed 2 of Titans, I believe is the guy that they've tagged to play Jack Reacher in the new TV show that they're making. Netflix doing a TV show.
That's better than Tom Cruise.
He's a very, in the books, he's a very, very big guy. Very muscular, very physically intense.
He basically looks like Jack Reacher in the books. Big,
yes,
blonde, and muscly.
Yes. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, "Yep, that absolutely works for me."
Spot on. That's great casting.
Sometimes you hear about casting, and you're just like, "Yeah, that'll do."
Well done, sir. Give him a crew cut. He is Jack Reacher. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely works.
But yeah, I mean, it seems to be a theme tonight, casting, isn't it? Which I quite like.
There's good casting makes a show, in my opinion. If you cast the right people in it, if you cast the wrong people in it, show's not going to survive.
Dare I mention what we're talking about the Mandalorian earlier, and this is maybe a slight, the controversy of Gina Carano and that. Mm-hmm. You know how she has, phrase this carefully, certain strong right-wing views. And she didn't seem to be able to help but air them constantly. And she was warned by Disney, which, is slightly hypocritical as well, coming from Disney and their roots. But I understand.
I kind of understand where they went with it.
Oh, no, I totally agree with them, but
I spent
was a big Nazi,
I'll tell you where I was with this. I spent many months sticking up for Gina Carano. Not that I agreed with things that she was saying, but I felt like you should be able to separate the actress from the role, and it didn't affect her part. At some point, you've got to say that DC would have said to her, "Look, this is the House of Mouse. You have to be whiter than white. You have to be clean. Please stop trying to be controversial online. You can be basically you can be in Star Wars or you can be an edgelord online. You kind of do both."
Oh no, I totally disagreed with everything she said in her personal life, but I liked her as Cara Dune. I thought she was a
character, but I'm not at all surprised that Disney finally decided, you know what, we could put anybody into this role.
It's not a main role.
It's already it's been fantastic to do the role.
Yeah, she's a supporting character, and she basically talked herself out of the role.
They can write in a new character to replace her, no problem. They could write another actress in.
I did hear that they were going to spin her off, but obviously that's been blown. And it's around
Marshals of the Frontier or something like that was going to be a thing. Obviously, they'll have backburnered that, come up with a new character and do something else instead.
Carol Weathers' character instead, I'd watch that.
But Disney have got no shortage of characters in these shows that they can put into shows. Obviously, we're going to get, again, next year I talked about all the Marvel shows which are coming, but we're getting a Boba Fett, the book of Boba Fett.
It was great to see Tamira Morrison again as Boba, and it was just so much fun. It was just a total geek love round.
There's a lot more badass in season 2 of The Mandalorian than there ever was in the original trilogy. Because I know people loved them, but that was basically mostly based on books and things like this. Because he was a bit of a wimp, and he didn't really do anything. He only got into one fight in the entirety of Empire and Jedi, and got taken out by a blind man basically.
No.
So
he ended up in the Sarlacc. That's not the greatest way for the greatest bounty hunter in the universe. Supposedly.
When they brought him back, one of the first things they did in the first episode was they showed him in a fight, with that big stick thing against multiple stormtroopers, and confirmed or established that he's a complete badass.
Oh yeah, and it was just nice to see that. Finally getting the love he deserves, and you're also getting Ming-Na Wen as his sidekick in the series, which will be great because she's fantastic. I could watch her reading the Cornflake package. It's amazing.
Well, they've got, like, I'm say all the rest of them. Katie Sackhoff in there as well as I forget her character. Bo-Katan, yeah.
Great. She was fantastic.
Story they can talk about the Mandalorian leader or emperor or whatever they are called.
Yeah.
They've got all sorts of options there.
That stuff with the Darksaber was quite fun.
I didn't read many of these books, to be honest with you. Beyond the first 6 or so that were all done by Timothy Zahn, the Heir to the Empire books, I didn't read many Star Wars tie-ins, either comics or books.
I've not read a ton of them. I've read a few, and I've only seen some of those shows that were in between, like the Clone Wars. I've seen the first season of the Clone Wars, bits of the other episodes. I've not seen Star Wars Rebels, but I've heard that's really good. I'm sure John was talking about it at one time when I bumped into him. I'm sure you'll comment on that, John. That looked quite good, you know.
Yeah, that was very good. I do hope to persuade John rather than just commenting and talking at him. I'm hoping to persuade John to come out on some point within the next couple of weeks and talk to us. Rebels is indeed fun, John. There's some great shows.
Told you.
Listen, that's been like 70 minutes now, and I was aiming for an hour.
A year?
An hour. I think I'm going to call that a day on the first Kingdom Comics podcast. I think it's been successful. I think we've chatted about it a lot. I think going forward, I'll try and do more regular skits. But this was, very, very much our very first week. So, thanks very much, Mark, for coming on.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
There will be an open invitation for you to come on in future weeks to discuss what's going on.
Anytime you want me, I'll be there.
As Alan said, all come with the Clone Wars animated series. It does. We're going back again. Dave Filoni created this massive storyline and characters and things like this, and he was an absolute genius.
I watched the first series of the Jenny Tarkovsky that did Samurai Jack. That was great. But yeah, Filoni as well, obviously.
Filoni again, yeah. Dave Filoni, marvellous. So, yeah, thanks for coming on, Mark. Thanks for all of you watching. This will be available on the Facebook page for the next few days at least. And once I've worked out how to do it, I'll be archiving it to YouTube. We'll be back next week with another. I was going to say this earlier on. Many podcasts will have a special guest every week, so much so that it becomes a wee bit trite. So I've decided mostly I'm going to go with normal guests. I don't know which way to point. Normal guests. People who are comic fans, yeah. People who I can talk to about favourite comics and things like this, without them necessarily being on here trying to push their own creations and stuff like this. So that's why I've enjoyed having you on here, Mark. I look forward to asking John, possibly Alan, who seems quite willing to get involved in the conversation. Alan's a very old friend of mine who's a massive Star Wars fan and has one of the largest collections of Star Wars, original Star Wars mint on pack miniatures that I'm aware of.
Thanks for that, because I'll know who to rob now when the apocalypse comes.
He keeps on threatening to sell them every now and again. He's going to go for a long holiday to Australia or something like that.
When do I get a pain, Andrew? What's his address? When's it out?
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate it. I'll definitely speak to you soon. You'll be on here in a couple of weeks as well, talking about Star Wars. You can give us all your opinions.
I've loved all the comments as well. The comments have all been good laugh, good fun, very on point and very interesting. Yeah, so well done, guys.
I've got involved. Like I say, most of these guys that I've commented, I'll be trying to persuade to come on and give us the benefit of their information.
We need to get on. If you get me back, we must discuss Doctor Who. We didn't even talk about Doctor Who, and I've got them on in the background.
Yeah, we will. I haven't. I'll be honest with you. I haven't watched Doctor Who since the last decent Doctor gave it up.
We shall shelf that for the future, Andrew. We shall talk about classic.
I'll mention the name of the last decent one, but we will do that next time. Final mention of Bunty from John. I think that's a great point to sign off. So I'm going to say bye-bye. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks Mark for coming.
No problem.
And I'll speak to you again next week. Cheers, guys.